Meghan, our friend Meghan this week, made the most astonishing announcement, which was effectively as ever, right? The sort of sad, simpering sequel to that non-starter. It's official. Meghan Markle has been permanently excluded from the royal fold, as confirmed by royal insiders and longtime commentators, rather than just whispered in palace hallways or hinted at in media headlines. Not in theory, not in passing, but in practice. No meetings, no reconciliation, not even a courteous hello. She's gone, for good. The decision arrived quietly. But what was the impact? Earth-shattering. This was not a PR move or a subtle distancing as we've seen in the past. This was Prince William putting a red line in the sand and declaring no more. Not just for the sake of the monarchy, but also for his wife, Catherine, Princess of Wales, whose name Meghan allegedly dragged through the dirt once too many times. According to royal officials, the final straw came after Prince Harry's most recent televised tell-all, in which he reignited grievances that most people thought were resolved. But this time, it wasn't simply Harry's remarks that stung. It was Meghan's shadow behind them. Her influence. Her voice was unspoken, but clear. William, who is famed for his restraint, reportedly reacted with frigid rage, not with an eruption, not with a headline-grabbing claim, but with complete quiet, strategic, permanent, deadly. And it came at a cost. One miracle would be completely cut off, barred from royal grounds, family activities, and even being mentioned around Princess Kate. That is not hyperbole. Insiders believe Meghan's name is suddenly off-limits in royal circles. Palace aides are apparently under strong orders not to discuss her, particularly around Catherine, whose health and emotional recovery are being closely monitored by William. This was more than just a reaction. It was essentially a protective order. William made it obvious that his loyalty is to his wife, not his brother's disarray. And if Harry couldn't pull himself away from Meghan's public vendetta, the door would remain closed. Permanently. The true shock came from how it was done. No statements. There's no drama. Meghan apparently hates silence. No headlines. No acknowledgement. Just an erase. A royal freeze-out that makes banishment appear mild. And make no mistake, this was not Catherine's wish alone. This was William, completely embracing his destiny as future king and making the most difficult personal decision of his royal life. Meghan Markle is no longer a part of the tale. And the silence? It explains everything. The public has long speculated on Meghan Markle's feud with Catherine, Princess of Wales, through whispers and carefully worded news releases. However, inside the palace's glittering walls, the truth was far more explosive. Multiple royal insiders claim that the implosion was not precipitated by a single incident, comment, or tabloid headline. Years of tension, distrust, and subtle emotional warfare culminated in an irreparable outcome. The connection between Meghan and Catherine was tense from the start. The palace had planned for a new royal Fab Four, made up of William and Kate, Harry and Meghan, who would be united by their youth charm and modernity. But that fantasy quickly dissipated. Behind closed doors, the dynamic was far from peaceful. Meghan, who was accustomed to calling the shots, reportedly battled with royal procedure. And Catherine, ever the symbol of tradition, became the quiet face of resistance. Their now famous disagreement prior to Meghan's wedding was only the beginning. For months, collecting tales about whether Meghan made Kate cry or vice versa dominated headlines. However, what the public did not see was the emotional impact it left behind. According to family sources, Catherine was distraught, not by the incident itself, but by Meghan's subsequent use of it in the media. It wasn't just the Oprah interview an insider explained. It was how Meghan framed Kate, cold, harsh, and complicit. And that portrayal broke something in Catherine. Even after that, William and Kate attempted to preserve civility for the sake of the monarchy. They turned up for activities. They smiled. They played their role. But it was always a tenuous truce, one that crumbled whenever Meghan launched a new media effort geared at her truth. The final straw came in May during a shocking BBC interview in which Prince Harry made disparaging statements about his time in the royal family. Though he avoided identifying names, the inference was clear. The mysterious institution that he and Meghan had battled to escape was still mistreating members of his family. Meghan's voice echoed behind his words. According to palace aides, Catherine was personally devastated by the new wave of attacks. She had been recovering secretly from a significant health crisis, the specifics of which remained unknown. And William had done everything he could to keep her stress-free. That interview altered everything. It wasn't just another PR setback, it was personal. Meghan's name became a trigger, and William had had enough. He reportedly summoned a closed-door conference with senior advisors and made it plain that Meghan Markle will never longer be referenced inside the palace. Staff were instructed not to mention her in informal conversation. Communications teams were instructed not to develop talking points. Events were evaluated to eliminate the likelihood of inadvertent meetings. Meghan was not only kept at a distance, she was obliterated. The attitude in the palace transformed. Meghan's cold tolerance developed into intentional exclusion. Catherine, who is known for her gentle and placid demeanor, allegedly fully endorsed the choice. According to those closest to her, it was not about pettiness or vengeance, but about peace of mind. Meghan's mere presence, much alone her name, had caused anxiety and tiredness. She felt like every time she took a step forward in recovery, Meghan would pull her 2 steps back, a source told me. William's ban was not an emotional reaction, but rather a deliberate move to preserve the 2 people he values the most, his wife and the crown. And in doing so, he created a line that Meghan would never cross again. Not through apologies, not through conciliation, not even through Harry. Meghan Markle had done enough for Catherine, and for William. That was more than simply a boundary. It was a vow, one he planned to maintain, regardless of the headlines, the pressure, or how loud the world became outside the gates of Buckingham Palace. Prince William has long been regarded as the calm center of the storm, steady, measured, and diplomatic, especially when compared to his more impulsive brother. However, insiders claim that in recent months, a new aspect of the future king has surfaced. Not angry, not emotional, strategic, ruthless, final. And when it came to Meghan Markle, that part of William made its most pronounced showing yet. According to many sources, the decision to impose an unofficial but absolute lifelong ban on Meghan did not occur during a yelling battle or emotional disagreement. It came discreetly, behind closed doors, in a room full of advisors, where William set out his stance with the ice-cold clarity that only a born leader could provide. Meghan Markle was no longer welcomed, not inside the palace, not at royal occasions, not in the regal narrative period. There wouldn't be any letters, no calls, no reconciliation. This wasn't just a matter of letting things cool down, it was a complete shutdown, a royal exile, not by title, but in practice. What made it even more poignant was William's decision to handle it in silence. There was no public statement. There is no grandiose news release, no briefing for the tabloids, just a series of internal decisions that gradually and deliberately removed Meghan from the royal ecology. According to court aides, her name was not to be discussed around Catherine. Staff were instructed to keep clear of her throughout all conversations. And when it came to planning royal engagements, Meghan's existence was to be disregarded. "He's not playing the media's game," one source stated. "He isn't going to give her a headline. He intends to remain silent, and that is even more terrible." This wasn't William acting out of spite. It was William assuming his duty as the monarchy's guardian, the one who will eventually wear the throne. With King Charles's health supposedly deteriorating, William has taken on greater responsibilities behind the scenes. And one of those tasks is to maintain the dignity and stability of the royal family, which he believes Meghan's ongoing presence actively threatens. Meghan's fingerprints may be found all over the royal drama of the last several years, from an Oprah interview to a Netflix docuseries to Harry's candid biography. While William has tried to remain calm, the latest provocations, particularly as Catherine's health deteriorated, compelled him to act. Royal critic Angela Levin, who wrote a book on Prince Harry, described the technique as devastatingly effective. There was no reaction. There is no acknowledgement, no oxygen for the flames, just a stately, impenetrable wall of stillness. And that, she said, is what's driving Meghan insane. Meghan has always had the ability to take control of a story. But how do you influence a story when the opposing side refuses to include your name? The firm is well known for its long-term strategy, and William, at its core, demonstrates that he has learned from the finest. His decision was not based solely on personal pain. It was about royal precedence. You cannot attack the crown and then waltz back in, not under his supervision. So the verdict is in, even if it's not written down. Meghan Markle has left, forever. And the most brutal aspect of all, no one in the palace will even mention her name. For years, Meghan Markle thrived on narrative control. She mastered the art of image creation, whether it was through carefully controlled interviews, lucrative streaming arrangements, or staged magazine covers. From her royal wedding to her opera appearance, Meghan depicted herself as both a victim and a conqueror, victimized by the system while rising above it. It was her brand, her weapon, her shield. But for the first time since entering the worldwide spotlight as Duchess of Sussex, Meghan has lost control of the narrative, and those closest to her claim she is unraveling behind closed doors. What makes this moment so tragic is not a smear campaign or a media exposé. Meghan never anticipated quiet. From the palace, from William, from Catherine, from the very institution she previously contested on the global stage, there is no response, there is no statement, not even an outright denial. Simply nothing. According to various royal sources, the quiet is what is driving her insane. She's used to being a headline, said a Hollywood source. Even the negative ones granted her power. What about now? She is completely invisible, and that is her worst fear. It began gently. Royal observers have noticed her absence from family discussions. News coverage began to exclude her from broader monarchy coverage. The ultimate blow came when it was learned that Meghan's name is allegedly forbidden from being discussed in Catherine's presence. Not spoken, not cited, not acknowledged. Meghan Markle is no longer part of the royal family. Inside Meghan's camp, the reaction was heated. She's not just frustrated, she's panicking, one former employee stated. She based her empire on being seen and heard. She is now entirely locked out. And the silence? It is louder than any attack. Her attempts to transition to a Hollywood power figure have not gone as anticipated. While her initial Netflix and Spotify collaborations generated attention, subsequent initiatives stagnated. Former supporters from fashion, journalism, and entertainment have begun to distance themselves. Even Edward N. Anfill, the British Vogue editor who had publicly praised her, is said to be avoiding future collaborations. Meghan is aware that the shine is fading. She thought she could control the story, stated a former palace assistant. But what she didn't expect was for the firm to stop playing. And what is the worst part for Meghan? She cannot resist what she cannot see. William has not attacked her. Catherine has not responded. The Crown has not issued a single word. There is no story to hold on to, no scandal to investigate, only an impassable wall of rejection. Even in her inner circle, fractures are appearing. Collaborators are pulling away. Media groups that formerly treated her as royalty are now writing with stark honesty. Her once greatest asset, public compassion, is diminishing. The palace has not cancelled her. They have eliminated her. Meghan, who once imagined she could rewrite the laws of monarchy, is coming to terms with the fact that she is no longer a character in the drama. No more headlines. There are no more responses. No more royal attention. Just silence. Cold. Strategic. Permanent. And for a woman who has built her life around the spotlight, quiet is more terrible than any scandal. It's a collapse of omission. And it's pushing Meghan over the edge. If Meghan's dilemma is silence, Prince Harry's is far more torturous. Choosing. Harry is caught between the woman he loves and the family that wants to find him. And he is now walking a razor-thin line between devotion and legacy, emotion and responsibility. And with Prince William's lifelong ban on Meghan now quietly in effect, the pressure has never been higher. For years, Harry stood by Meghan's side. Even during the Oprah interview, the Netflix docuseries, and his bombshell memoir, Spare. His story was unwavering. The royal family had failed them, and their decision to go was based on survival rather than revolt. He attacked, exposed, and reinvented himself as an outsider, while maintaining the label that made him relevant. However, the dynamic is evolving. Behind the palace's silence and William's icy wall, a new door has quietly opened, one that leads back, but only for Harry. According to insiders, while Meghan's name is forbidden from all royal circles, William and Catherine have set a condition for Harry: family first, but only if he goes alone. The sentiment is clear, a royal aide stated. He is blood. There is still love there, but it's no longer unconditional. William, who had always been protective of his brother, apparently drew the line out of need rather than animosity. He witnessed the constant interviews, attacks, and media weaponization, and he saw Meghan's fingerprints all over them. In his opinion, Harry, deliberately or not, had become a spokesman for anarchy. Still, Charles, and to a lesser extent William, hold out hope that Harry may find his way back if he is ready to make a clean split from the circus that currently surrounds him. But it's a difficult climb. No more media deals, no more memoirs, no more passive-aggressive statements about tabloids. In short, no more Meghan-style public relations battle. But herein lies the tragedy. Harry cannot simply walk away. He has constructed his new life, identity, and money on Meghan as the cornerstone. They are a package deal, by choice, branding, and conviction. Harry would consider returning to royal life without her a betrayal, not just of his wife, but of everything they've said and advocated since 2020. However, the expense of maintaining loyalty is increasing. As the world watches Meghan's influence dwindle and public sympathy shifts elsewhere, Harry risks being dragged down alongside her. Friends from his previous life have become distant. Royal cousins maintain their distance. Public sentiment has cooled, and with William now maintaining a tight line, Harry feels more alienated than ever. A prince without a realm, a brother without a bridge. The irony is heartbreaking. The youngster who once marched behind his mother's coffin in front of the entire world, who was hailed as a war hero and revered as the pleasant, down-to-earth prince, is now a cautionary story. Not nearly rebellious, not exactly royal, floating in between. The palace stays mute, but the message is deafening. You may come home, Harry, but only if you arrive alone. And that is the tightrope he is now walking. One misstep, and he will lose everything. Meghan Markle, once lauded as a modern icon, a woman who shattered barriers, rewrote royal etiquette, and charmed the world media, is now facing a completely different narrative. Decline, isolation, and disappointment. Her carefully crafted empire, based on image, influence, and managed vulnerability, is starting to crumble, and the cracks are no longer being filled. When Meghan and Harry left the royal family in 2020, they were greeted with a surge of public interest and rich offers. Netflix, Spotify, and Penguin Random House all wanted a share of the exiled royals. The Sussexes labeled themselves as disruptors, victims of a rigid institution, and advocates for social justice. For a while, it worked. They dominated headlines, closed major deals, and transformed public discourse. However, 3 years later, the shine is quickly fading. The Netflix documentary series came and went. The Spotify agreement failed. Meghan's animated series was cancelled before its premiere. Even the most carefully prepared enterprises, podcasts, lifestyle launches, interviews are struggling to find their footing. What was once fresh and radical now feels overdone. Audiences are tuning out. It's fatigue, one entertainment executive plainly stated. At some point, the public wants more than victimhood and vague empowerment slogans. However, it is not only the projects that are failing, but also the relationships that support them. Edward Enninful, Meghan's most ardent ally in British media, has become strangely quiet. The previous editor-in-chief of Vogue UK, who granted Meghan a well-publicized guest editorship in 2019, never longer mentions her in interviews. According to sources close to Enninful, the cooperation, which was previously praised as innovative, came to an unpleasant end. Meghan's demands allegedly got too much behind the scenes, too domineering, too self-centered, and unwilling to compromise, and he isn't alone. Former employees, collaborators, and public supporters have gradually departed. Some claim Meghan exhibits diva behavior, including mood swings, micromanagement, and hypersensitivity to criticism. Others believe the Sussex brand has become too hazardous and polarizing. One incorrect headline and the association becomes a burden. Even in Hollywood, the need for Meghan the Disruptor is fading. A-list friendships have cooled. There are less public invitations. Her once dazzling image now bears baggage, including charges of manipulation, entitlement, and self-interest. Insiders say Meghan has become increasingly paranoid and defensive. She allegedly obsesses about press coverage, monitors social media reaction, and seeks near-constant control over her image. She used to wield the media like a sword, but now she struggles to keep it under control. And when the palace's quiet gets louder, with William imposing a total cutoff and Catherine forbidding her name from being mentioned. Meghan finds herself fighting ghosts. There are no press releases, no public fighting, nobody is listening to her story. And the silence, the nothingness, is destroying her brand. Meghan was never simply a duchess or an actress. She represented a movement, a tale, a rebrand. She created an empire around visibility, being seen and heard. And now she is being erased, not by scandal, not by smear, but via intentional royal silence. Her power stemmed from her ability to attract attention, which she is now losing. From Vogue covers to royal hallways, Silicon Valley pitches to London gallows, Meghan's name is no longer commanding attention. It whispers if it is heard at all. And Prince William's immovable line in the sand sends a clear message. Her reign outside the palace may have begun with fire, but it ends with quiet. Meghan Markle was ultimately obliterated with silence rather than fury. Instead of a royal proclamation or a scandalous takedown, the future King of England made a calm, measured decision. Prince William did not anger, he did not retaliate. He simply closed the door, locking it forever. This royal freeze-out is a crushing blow for a woman who has built her authority on being seen, heard, and spoken about. There are no more interviews to respond to, no more rebuttals, no more oxygen. The palace did not need to mention her name to conclude the chapter. They just ceased acknowledging the book totally. And for Catherine, this was not about vengeance, but about survival. After years of public tension, barely veiled insults and whispered slights, she made one final plea: peace. William delivered. Meghan is no longer merely unwelcome, she is unmentioned. In the royal world, banishment is as final as it comes. What remains is a terrible symmetry. Meghan, who famously cut off her own father and openly severed relations with family members she felt toxic, is now experiencing her own philosophy of complete separation. No closure, no talk, just silence. What about Prince Harry? He remains in the middle, still loved, but no longer entirely trusted. The royal family's hand is still extended, but only if he steps away from the tempest that accompanies his wife's every move. It's unclear whether he can or will, but Meghan's verdict is in. The crown has spoken, not with words, but with silence. There is no title that can solve it, no apology will undo it. She is not a part of the monarchy's future, either by name, image, or memory. Meghan Markle hasn't simply come out, she's gone. And the most powerful family in Britain has ensured that she remains that way. Forever way.